Beneath the streets of Épernay, France, there are over 100 kilometers of underground tunnels carved into chalk bedrock. Inside these tunnels, at a constant temperature of 12 degrees Celsius, in near total darkness, over 300 million bottles of champagne are aging right now. 300 million! If you laid them end to end, they would circle the Earth more than twice.
The tunnels beneath the Moët and Chandon estate alone stretch for 28 kilometers, longer than the entire Paris Metro's longest line.
And every single bottle in those tunnels is the product of a process so technically complex, so chemically precise, and so deeply rooted in centuries of accumulated knowledge that it cannot legally be called champagne unless it was made in one specific region of France using one specific method that no shortcut and no industrial substitute has ever successfully replicated. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how it's made. The global champagne market generates approximately $6 billion in revenue annually and exports over 300 million bottles to every corner of the world. But the numbers alone do not capture what champagne represents in human culture. It is the universal signal of celebration. The drink opened at weddings, at victories, at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, at the launch of ships, at the conclusion of championship races. No other product category so completely owns a human emotion. No other beverage has been so consistently associated across so many cultures and centuries with the idea of a moment worth remembering. The prestige houses of the Champagne region, Moet and Chandon, Dom Pérignon, Krug, Bollinger, Veuve Clicquot, Paul Roger, collectively manage supply chains, real estate portfolios,
and production operations of extraordinary scale. Moët and Chandon alone produces approximately 30 million bottles per year, making it the largest champagne house in the world by volume. Dom Pérignon, operating as the prestige cuvée of Moët and Chandon, produces a more limited but still massive quantity, each vintage release representing a multi-year investment of viticulture, winemaking, and aging that can span a decade or more from harvest to sale. What most people do not realize is that behind the silk ribbons and gold foil is one of the most technically demanding production processes in the food and beverage industry. A process where the margin for error is essentially zero, where the product is a living biological system under pressure, and where the difference between a great bottle and a flawed one can depend on decisions made years before the bottle ever reaches the consumer. It starts, as all wine does, with the vine.
The Champagne appellation covers approximately 34,000 hectares of vineyards in northeastern France, a region whose geography, soil, and climate combine in ways that have never been successfully replicated anywhere else on Earth. The chalk subsoil, which reflects sunlight upward onto the grape clusters and drains water with exceptional efficiency, the cool continental climate that preserves acidity in the grapes, the specific microclimates of the Grand Cru and Premier Cru villages, these are the foundation on which everything else is built. The three primary grape varieties permitted in Champagne are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Each contributes distinct characteristics. Chardonnay provides finesse, citrus, and minerality, and is the dominant variety in Blanc de Blanc champagnes. Pinot Noir contributes structure, body, and red fruit notes. Pinot Meunier adds roundness and approachability, ripening more reliably in cooler years. Most non-vintage champagnes are blends of all three, with each house maintaining its own proprietary ratio, the backbone of the house style. Harvest in Champagne is one of the most intensive agricultural operations in France.
Because the region's relatively cool climate means grapes ripen late and the harvest window is narrow, typically 2 to 3 weeks in September, the major houses must mobilize enormous picking workforces almost simultaneously. Moët and Chandon employs over 10,000 seasonal harvest workers during this period. The grapes must be picked by hand. Mechanical harvesting is not permitted for champagne production because whole, undamaged bunches are required for the pressing step. In a single harvest season, the Champagne region collectively picks enough grapes to fill over 1 billion bottles. The pressed juice, called must, arrives at the winery and is loaded into stainless steel tanks for the first fermentation. This initial fermentation is straightforward. Yeast converts the grape sugars to alcohol over a period of about 3 weeks, producing a still, dry base wine with typically 9 to 11% alcohol. The base wines, and there may be dozens or even hundreds of different lots, each from a specific village, specific variety, and specific vineyard parcel, are stored separately in temperature-controlled tanks for the winter.
This is where the art of champagne production begins in earnest, and where the title of chef de cave, the head winemaker, represents one of the most demanding creative and technical roles in the entire food and beverage industry. The blending of the assemblage is the moment that defines the champagne. The chef de cave at a major house must evaluate hundreds of individual base wines, tasting each one, understanding its contribution of acidity, fruit, structure, and aromatic character, and blend them into a single cuvée that expresses the house style with perfect consistency year after year, regardless of what the vintage delivered. For non-vintage champagne, this consistency is achieved in part by adding reserve wines, older base wines from previous years kept specifically for this purpose, into the blend. Moët and Chandon maintains a reserve wine library of staggering depth. Some houses keep reserves going back 15, 20, or even 30 years, layering vintages together in the assemblage to smooth out the variability of individual years and maintain a recognizable flavor profile that customers expect regardless of when they buy the bottle. But this is where things get extraordinarily interesting. The finished assemblage is not yet champagne. It is still a still wine.
The bubbles, the defining characteristic of champagne, have not yet been created. Creating them is the most technically audacious step in the entire process. It is called the Méthode Champenoise, the traditional method, and it is the reason champagne cannot be made in weeks the way most sparkling wines are. To create the bubbles, the blended still wine is bottled with a precise addition of a sugar and yeast mixture called the liqueur de tirage. The bottle is sealed with a crown cap, the same type used on beer bottles, and laid horizontally in the cellar. Inside the sealed bottle, the yeast begins a second fermentation, consuming the added sugar and producing carbon dioxide gas. Because the bottle is sealed, the gas cannot escape. Instead, it dissolves into the wine under pressure. The pressure inside a champagne bottle after second fermentation reaches approximately 6 atmospheres, 3 times the pressure in a standard car tire. This is why champagne bottles are made from thick, heavy glass, and why a cork exiting at speed is genuinely dangerous. The second fermentation takes around 8 weeks. After it is complete,
The wine is allowed to rest on the lees, the dead yeast cells, for a minimum period specified by appellation regulations. For non-vintage champagne, this is at least 15 months. For vintage champagne, at least 3 years. For prestige cuvées like Dom Pérignon, the aging period extends far beyond the legal minimum, typically 6 to 8 years, and sometimes considerably longer. During this extended rest, the autolysis of the yeast cells, their gradual breakdown and dissolution into the wine, imparts the characteristic biscuity, brioche-like, toasty complexity that distinguishes aged champagne from simpler sparkling wines. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be simulated. It happens on its own schedule, in the dark, in the chalk tunnels below Épernay. Most people never realize what happens next, because the dead yeast cells must be removed from the bottle without losing the precious pressure inside. This is the challenge that stumped champagne makers for generations, and it was solved in the early 19th century by a widow named Barbe Nicole Clicquot, the famous Veuve Clicquot, who invented or perfected the technique of riddling, or remuage. In traditional riddling, the bottles are placed in pupitres, A-frame wooden racks with angled holes, and over a period of several weeks,
a skilled riddler turns each bottle by a small amount each day, while gradually increasing its angle from horizontal to nearly vertical, neck down. This progressive rotation causes the sediment, the dead yeast, to migrate along the bottle's side and accumulate in the neck, just above the crown cap. A skilled human riddler can turn up to 40,000 bottles per day. It is repetitive, physically demanding work, and it requires genuine skill to avoid disturbing the sediment back into the wine. Today, the major houses have largely replaced hand riddling with gyro pallets, large metal cages, each holding approximately 500 bottles that are rotated and tilted by computer-controlled hydraulic systems in a programmed sequence. A gyro pallet completes in 1 week what took a human riddler 3 to 8 weeks. The largest champagne facilities operate hundreds of gyro pallets simultaneously, processing millions of bottles through the riddling cycle continuously. After riddling, the sediment is concentrated in the neck of the inverted bottle. To remove it, the neck is plunged into a freezing brine solution that solidifies the sediment into a small plug of frozen wine. The crown cap is then removed, a process called disgorgement, and the pressure inside the bottle ejects the frozen plug of yeast sediment cleanly, taking it out of the bottle without losing significant gas or wine. The bottle is immediately topped up to compensate for the small quantity lost, and here the most carefully guarded secret of each champagne house is deployed: the dosage. The dosage is a mixture of wine and dissolved sugar, the liqueur d'expedition, added in a precise quantity to bring the bottle to its final volume and determine the sweetness level of the finished champagne. A brut champagne receives very little dosage, perhaps 9 grams of sugar per liter. An extra brut receives even less. A demi-sec receives significantly more. But the dosage is not simply about sweetness. The specific wine used in the liqueur d'expedition, the exact sugar concentration, and the precise volume added are variables that affect the final flavor, the balance of the champagne, and even its aging potential. The dosage recipe is a house secret, adjusted by the chef de cave with each release, and it is the final act of creative control over the wine before it reaches the consumer.
At Dom Pérignon, where the dosage is kept extremely low to allow the wine's natural complexity to dominate, this decision is one of the last made before a vintage is released, sometimes years after the decision to release it at all was first taken. The corked and muzzled bottle then receives its label, foil capsule, and packaging. A high-speed champagne labeling and packaging line at Moët and Chandon can process thousands of bottles per hour, each one receiving its label and capsule with millimeter precision from automated machinery. The finished bottles are packed into cases and moved to temperature-controlled warehousing before distribution. The most technically impressive stage of the entire operation, the one that separates the truly great champagne houses from everyone else, is the disgorgement process at scale, combined with the real-time quality monitoring that surrounds it. At Moët and Chandon's main production facility in Épernay, disgorgement lines operate continuously, processing millions of bottles per year. Each bottle passes through an automated inspection station equipped with cameras and spectrometric sensors that evaluate fill level, clarity, bubble formation, and the presence of any residual sediment that the riddling process failed to consolidate. Bottles that fail inspection are rejected automatically.
The precision of the dosage addition is equally impressive. Modern dosage systems inject the liqueur d'expedition with a measurement accuracy of less than half a milliliter in a bottle with a total volume of 750 milliliters. This precision matters because the dosage is the final calibration of the wine's character, and consistency across millions of bottles in a single release is essential to maintaining house style. Here are the facts about champagne production that most people find genuinely astonishing. The pressure inside a standard champagne bottle, 6 atmospheres, is sufficient to push the cork out at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour. Approximately 24 people are killed or seriously injured by champagne corks every year worldwide. This is not a fringe concern for manufacturers. It is why the wire cage, the mousselet, that secures the cork has exactly 6 half-turns of wire, standardized across the entire industry, following a study showing this was the minimum needed for safe containment. The chalk tunnels beneath Épernay, the criers, are not natural formations.
Many of them were quarried in the Middle Ages for building stone and later adapted for wine storage. Some date back to Roman times. The network beneath the major houses combined is longer than 60 Paris metro lines. Dom Pérignon is not released until it is aged for at minimum 8 years from harvest. The wine sold today as Dom Pérignon vintage was harvested years before most of the people buying it had any awareness of the brand. A single Grand Cru vineyard plot in the Champagne appellation can sell for over €1 million per hectare, making it among the most expensive agricultural land on Earth. The total land value of all Champagne vineyards exceeds €50 billion. The chalk soil of Champagne absorbs rainfall and releases it slowly to the vine roots throughout the growing season, acting as a natural reservoir that buffers both drought and excess moisture. This geological accident is one of the primary reasons the Champagne region produces wines with the combination of ripeness and high natural acidity that makes great Champagne possible.
Moët and Chandon uses over 120 different base wines in the blending of its non-vintage Brut Impérial, sourced from vineyards across the Champagne appellation, to achieve a consistent flavor profile year after year. The blending panel that evaluates the assemblage is conducted blind, with the chef de cave and a small team tasting hundreds of samples over several weeks. The global Champagne export market is dominated by a remarkably small geographic area. The entire Champagne appellation, the only place on Earth where true Champagne can be produced, covers roughly the same land area as the city of Los Angeles. The global distribution of Champagne follows the contours of wealth and celebration with uncanny precision. The largest export markets are the United Kingdom, the United States, and Japan, followed by Germany, Belgium, and Australia. Emerging luxury markets in China and the Middle East have grown rapidly. In total, the Champagne region exports to over 190 countries, essentially every nation on Earth that can legally receive alcoholic beverages. The supply chain that connects the Champagne vineyards to a bottle on a shelf in Tokyo or New York is more temperature sensitive than most people realize.
Champagne is a living product. It continues to evolve chemically inside the bottle, and exposure to heat, vibration, and light can permanently damage it. Serious shippers use refrigerated containers and temperature logging systems throughout transit. Bottles that have been heat damaged, displaying a telltale brownish color and moderized flavor, are a source of persistent quality concern for the major houses, particularly for bottles sold in markets where the supply chain is long and cold chain compliance is imperfect. So consider the bottle in its final form. The glass is cool to the touch. It holds a chill well, the thick borosilicate walls providing thermal mass that helps keep the wine cold. The cork is under 6 atmospheres of pressure, held by 6 half-turns of water. Inside, suspended in the wine, are approximately 49 million bubbles per glass, each one a tiny sphere of carbon dioxide formed at a nucleation point on the glass surface, rising in a continuous stream to the surface, where it breaks and releases aromatic compounds into the air.
That wine inside is the product of a specific harvest from specific parcels of chalky French hillside, blended by a specific person who has spent their career learning to recognize and shape the character of hundreds of individual wines into something coherent. Aged for years in tunnels carved from rock before the Industrial Revolution existed, and finished by a combination of mechanized precision and centuries of accumulated craft that no other sparkling wine region in the world has yet fully replicated. It began as a grape on a vine in Champagne. It took years to become what it is, and it will be gone in a few minutes. Which part of the Champagne making process surprised you most? The riddling? The underground aging? The blending of over 100 wines? Or the pressure inside the bottle? Tell us in the comments. And if this is the kind of deep dive into the world's most extraordinary production stories you want more of, subscribe. We are going deeper.